Sports reports, no gimmicks, no clowns. 2-5, Mr. Logical, we run this town. Real talk only, no chasing, no doubt. From the east to the west, it's the order we shout. Mic check, lights flash, game time, stay ready. 2 vets in the zone, keep the pressure real heavy. Big hits, big plays, yeah, we breaking it down. Truth rings in your speakers, every word is the crown. From the north side hustle to that southern flame. Midwest grind, west coast of the game. Sports talk kings, yeah, we wear that crown. Turn it up, let them know it's about to go down. Sports reports, no gimmicks, no clowns. 2-5, Mr. Logical, we run this town. Real talk only, no chaser, no doubt. From the east to the west, it's the order we shout.
It's about to go down.
Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports Assorted, brought to you by the one and only Mr. Logical, and I am 2-5. Thank you for all the love and support out there. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things, hopefully with a liquid death in your hand. Tonight, we're going to start off with a little bit of Lane Kiffin, the turncoat that he is. You know, we're going to get into a little bit of NFL playoff talk. We're going to get into some college football playoff talk. And don't forget, tomorrow, we got our special episode coming out, 8:45 Eastern with the great Jay Paterno. Little talk about mental health, some NIL and other things. But let's jump right into it. What up, Scott? Thank you, sir. So check it out. I've been told a lot of different pieces of advice over the course of my life. One thing holds true. And unlike that reporter down in Mississippi, I'm not afraid to say it. You can't turn a hoe into a housewife. And anytime you thought that you could, Lane Kiffin was here to remind us that you cannot. Now, look, I'm never going to be the type that's going to tell somebody to turn down money. That's going to say, hey, don't take that better opportunity. You know, we can argue whether it's better or not, but don't turn down that better opportunity. But what I will also say is, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. That's what matters to people. What say you, Mr. Logical?
I felt logically about it. I was like, hey, you're at Ole Miss, you're the SEC program, you're splitting that TV revenue, your players are going in the first round, you're constantly in the top 10 of recruiting classes. LSU is in somewhat of disarray, and I felt like it was more of an opportunity to bolster your own current roster, maybe even leverage a little bit more money out of Ole Miss, and still get some of these guys that were going to go to LSU, because LSU still, if they didn't hire Lane Kiffin, they weren't going to get a name like Lane Kiffin. I don't think it was another one out there. So if LSU would probably still be in Penn State's position right now, where you're a prominent school and you feel like you deserve a certain level of a coach, and it might drag on for a few more days. Like Penn State's going on nearly 2 months in their search for a coach. I think LSU probably would have gone a few more weeks, which would have given Lane an opportunity to take Ole Miss to the playoffs, perform well, and just fleece the rest of those players. On top of the fact it's the same region, I don't want to say, I'm not even sure if it's an upgraded move. Because if you're strictly basing off of what Joe Burrow did and what, Les Miles did, then yeah, I guess it's an upgrade. But the last, in between those championships, they've been a really good 9-3 SEC football team with a couple of very, 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 very good years, but a ton of talent. Ole Miss is in that same boat. DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Jackson Dart, who else came out of there recently out of the draft? So it's like they're getting good players out of there and through their program. You could have got a few more and stayed at Ole Miss. And then the way you had to leave because of the way the system's currently set up, it was gonna make you look like the villain anyway. And I know Lane, he kind of operates like he doesn't care about that, but in some sense, you're gonna lose or gain credibility based on those kind of actions. Now, if you're a parent of a kid going to LSU, you're like, if the Bama job comes open in 2 years, is he gonna slide? Because that's definitely an uptick on LSU, and he has a history with Bama. So, and then Bama will throw $15 million a year at him if they felt like, hey, he had 2 good years at LSU, and Kalen DeBoer isn't doing it anymore. So yeah, I just feel like it's just a bad precedent.
So one thing that you said, I do think that LSU is an upgrade, but there's a couple of different reasons why that might not matter because of the era that we're in with the transfer portal. But when I think about it, right, LSU has proof of concept, because when we think about national champions over the years, Alabama, your Nick Sabans, all the way back to Bear Bryant, Bobby Bowden, your Joe Paterno, so on and so forth. There was always this strong leader at the forefront of the university. Whereas at LSU, I don't think anybody thinks of Les Miles as this super great head coach that's on Mount Rushmores, and the same thing, definitely not Ed Orgeron. But but LSU has the state to themselves, because I don't think, besides the whole G5 Power 4 thing, Tulane just doesn't recruit the same type of player that LSU does. Same thing with Louisiana, same thing with Monroe. But when you look at Ole Miss, you are sharing the state with Mississippi State. Even though Southern Miss isn't necessarily a great school per se lately, Southern Miss has some pedigree of being a good football program. So I think LSU has that advantage, and they probably get into Texas more than Mississippi does. But with that being said, all things created equal right now as we speak, Ole Miss is 11-1. They're basically in the playoff. And,
Yes.
and this was the thing, right? And I don't want to do it. But I got to do it to make a point.
Do it. Yeah.
So we think about LeBron in the decision, right?
Correct.
And he just felt he couldn't win a title in Cleveland. He had a buddy in Miami and another guy that was willing to come. So when you look at Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss right now, he knew way before Saturday that he was going to LSU. And that's why I came on here last week and I said, if I was Ole Miss, I wouldn't even let him coach the Egg Bowl, because I know that you're leaving. Like, I can look at myself in the mirror and look at LSU and know what the decision is going to be. So just be upfront with me, because now early signing day is tomorrow. And you were going to leave me hanging without the opportunity to go get a head coach, to get somebody to replace you. So now I had to upgrade our defensive coordinator, who has never been a head coach before, into this position. And it's not even that Lane Kiffin owes them anything. It's not even that. But it's just, you got some damn nerve to go about it this way and then be upset that I won't let you coach the team?
Oh, okay, I'll play devil's advocate for Lane. The calendar allows for this kind of move because, like you said, early signing days tomorrow. So as an organization or a school, I want to get my new head coach in place. Ole Miss is in the same boat. Like, listen, we need to get our guy in place. So no, you can't have 1 foot out and 1 foot in and try to stay here and continue to mold this relationship with the players. If you have one on your way out the door and some of them go with you, that's fine. I'm not going to give you another 3 weeks of one-on-one time, and because let's keep it a buck. If he knows LSU has, say LSU is like, listen, we're trying to build, we want the best special teams in the SEC. So we've allotted $10 million to get kickers, punters, long snappers, gunners, guys like hustle guys. And we're going to give them all, $700,000 each, whatever that number is. If he knows LSU has that number, just for those kind of guys. Yeah, the 5-star guys, that's a different stratosphere of money. But if you're trying to build a team, like, yeah, we got 5 or 10 million. Let's just try to make the best special teams where we can turn punts into touchdowns or short fields. Who you got on Ole Miss that fits that? Who do we have? Like, you might have a guy on Ole Miss who might not be getting any NIL money, but it's like, yo, you want to come to LSU and be a gunner? Specialize in being a gunner? Hey, like, we really like the kicker. It sounds crazy, but like, if you're thinking about winning, like, you have to figure all these avenues. So it's like, if I have a coach, I'm like, yeah, well, cool. I don't want you to ruffle all the feathers to try to get the 4 or 5-star guy. We got plenty of those guys coming. I don't want my 4 and 5-star guys on punt and kickoff. Give me the best guys you have there. That puts you at such an advantage. If you have literally guys who are set to do that and they're willing to do it for $125,000, yeah. But that's the thing with LSU and Ole Miss and the money and the coaches. Like, listen, if I'm Ole Miss, I don't want any of that to happen. I don't want any of those conversations to happen on my watch. So if you're working for LSU, there's some parameters in place about who you could talk to on my team. But if I'm letting you coach, I can't stop you from saying, hey, I got a spot for you at LSU while you're at practice preparing for Texas Tech or whatever team you end up getting.
That's the funny part about it, because if we go back into the time capsule a little bit, there was a time where he was Nick Saban's offensive coordinator on that super stacked coach team with Kirby Smart and Sark and all these guys. Yeah. And Nick Saban let him go because he took the job at Florida Atlantic and felt like, hey, you're too conflicted right now. And he fired him the week before the national title game. I shouldn't say fired. He let him go, but more or less he fired him. But basically, like, hey, you got to go because you can't focus on 2 things at once, especially, when the calendar, to your point, where the national title game falls, now you're getting closer to the real national signing day. So that goes back to my original point of, like, look, Ole Miss, like, Lane Kiffin doesn't owe you anything. You know what I'm saying? But Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss threw you a lifeline when a lot of people didn't want to touch you too. You know what I mean? Like, you were at Florida Atlantic. They didn't hire you from Penn State or Michigan, or they didn't hire you from Florida State. You were at Florida Atlantic for a reason. So from that standpoint, not that you owe them anything, but it's just right from wrong. Like, you could cheat on your wife tomorrow. She could forgive you. Don't mean you should do it again. Like, that's just.
But that's his MO. His MO is the same greedy, selfish, in it for the money, names and stories and points we try to throw at the feet of the players. The coaches are the ones who do it. I want to say more because it's less coaches, but at a greater and more disappointing level, because you have people who are at the school because you told them something about their future and they believed you. And their future was that school. Mm-hmm. Now you're leaving. They don't know, like, say you had I would say necessarily beef, but like, say the defensive coordinator didn't want to keep 4 running backs now. Or he wants to go cut down to 4, and right now there's 6. Well, Lane told you last year, like, yo, come here. This guy's going to graduate. This guy's going to graduate. You are up next year. But you're not good enough to go with them to LSU because LSU has 4 guys just as good as the guys that are Ole Miss. So now you told this guy, hey, you up next year. And now next year comes around and you're gone. A lot of coaches, the coaches that get hired out of JMU, the coaches that getting hired out of West Virginia, all these coaches are just packing up their family, 4 or 5 people and a dog and a U-Haul, and leaving town and leaving these players behind. But if a player doesn't want to play in the Meineke Car Care Bowl because he wants to save his knees or his potential draft stock, mm-hmm, or his opportunity to go to another school, he's selfish. He's not doing it for his brothers. What about the guy doing it for the biggest paycheck of all? Because I don't care what the NIL money is. SEC coaches, I don't think there's any player in the SEC getting paid more than his coach.
And then when you look at it, you got Tulane and North Texas. John Summerall and Eric Morris, they're remaining on staff as the head coach to see the season through. Both they play in the American title game on Friday. The winner is probably going to the playoff. So they're going to stay. Summerall's going to Florida. Morris is going to Oklahoma State. So they were asking me, well, what's the difference? Like, why can they stay and coach and why can't Lane Kiffin? Because we're talking about two different ball games here. We're talking about guys at a G5 school going upward to schools that they're not necessarily competing for recruits with, whereas Ole Miss and LSU are actual rivals. Like, it's not quite Miami, Florida State, or Ohio State, Michigan.
Kids between LSU, between Louisiana and Mississippi, who are rated 4 or 5 star that probably have both of those schools on their list, their short list of 5.
And you're leaving me as a playoff team to go to them in my conference. Now, you could call that Ole Miss being bitter, and it might very well be. But
I think they have the right to be bitter for a little bit.
So too. I think that each school has the right to decide how they want to press on. And that's another thing with this new world in 2025. Everybody doesn't have to do the same thing. Just because North Texas did this doesn't mean Ole Miss has to do the same thing. Like, you're allowed to be different. You're allowed, and it's a different situation. It's a different scenario. So basically all this boils down to is Lane Kiffin wanted the attention. He wanted the attention. He went outside, watered the garden, saying the handsome man next door came outside and he said, I want to roll with you. You got the Porsche. He got a nice Benz, but I'm rolling with you. And that's all that happened in this situation. He wanted attention. He got it. Sayonara. I put it like that. But Mr. Logical, in some other business, how about those Chicago Bears right now?
That was shocking. It was shocking to see the standings. Because I watched a lot of football Thursday and Friday. Saturday I did a little shopping. Sunday I was watching these guys play the guys who play in East Rutherford. Watched a little bit of that, and I was like, you know what? Walmart's looking real fun right now. Maybe Home Depot to get some more wood pellets for my smoker. So I decided to go do that. And then after the dust kind of settled, I pulled up the website and I saw the Bears were the number 1 team in the NFC. And I was like, it feels fake.
Yeah.
It's not like I don't think they earned it, but I think the NFL does a great job of establishing parity and putting teams in position to go from worst to first. I think New England's benefiting from it. Denver benefited from it last year, and now the team plays with confidence and they're doing it well this year. Chicago, same way. Because in the NBA, once you're down. Like Charlotte's gonna be 30-52 until they figure it out. Like, you just got to figure it out. Like, the draft picks won't help. You got to figure out everything else. Whereas the NFL is like, listen,
shit, they barely get 20 these days.
We're gonna let you play some other teams that were also in 3rd and 4th place. We're gonna give you guys coin toss kind of games, and then we're gonna give you better picks. Other teams are gonna try to fleece you for your talent. That's cool. We'll set a standard where they got to give up a bunch of picks. That's the expectation. 2-3 first-round picks, and then hopefully by the time you get it all figured out, you get the coach, you get the quarterback, you get the defense, you get the skill players, and you can make your run where you're 10, 11, 12 win team. I think Chicago's taking advantage of that now. I think they really believe in Ben Johnson. I think Caleb Williams has I think he has a locker room, because that was always my concern. I always felt like it had to be clean. Like we talk about Jared Goff needing the clean pocket. I always felt like Caleb Williams needed to go first drive, points, second drive, points, third drive, points. Defense gets to stop. They go on a halftime, 17-7, 17-10, something like some kind of lead. I didn't think he'd be good in the wet weather, tough knockout Chicago style games. I thought he was going to need like a Hollywood kind of script, but he's showing that like, hey, I can go out here and I can play in the mud and I can win. So I respect it.
You funny, Chris. If you squint just a little bit to the east, you can see DeAndre Swift still running. Like he's still running right now, getting chased by Jalen Carter right now as we speak. The Bears.
Philly is looking a lot like it's looking very, very 2023.
The Bears ran for 281 yards in that game against Philadelphia. And it don't slow down. It doesn't slow down because the Bears are going to Lambeau this week. First place on the line. So we're about to find out, what I'm saying? And to your point, about Denver, bringing up Denver, to your point, when you look at the Bears, you know what I mean? They've been fortunate. Like Philly's probably been the team that they've played this year that had the defense that you thought should be able to, hold their offense in check, and obviously they weren't able to. So credit to Chicago. I don't know if they're going to get out of Lambeau this weekend, but we'll get into that on Friday.
Sirianni, real quick, I got to say something about Sirianni. I know we don't want to keep bearing. Someone has to tell him that he has to leave his ego in the locker room. The tush push, yes, it was the shit when Jason Kelce was there and no one knew how to stop it. Now people are just ripping at the ball from Jalen Hurts. It's raining. You need 1 yard. Just give it to the guy wearing 26 that you're paying $39 million. It's just arrogance. It's just hubris. It's flying too close to the sun every single week. Like, because people have tried to ban the tush push. I know Chicago was one of the teams that had their vote. The tush push is no longer, it's not necessary at the 20. I mean, like it's not necessary every 3rd and 1, every 4th and 1. It's like, it's ego that's making you call that, because you have the best like group of skill players on offense.
Yeah, why don't you try to get Saquon in rhythm?
Yeah, like get these guys in rhythm and like get the 3 feet that way. I just feel like he is going to be the reason. I felt like this, last couple of years, just they played lights out down the stretch last year, won the Super Bowl. I feel like him and like the lack of like just ego control, like the emotional control. I think he just doesn't have I don't think he has his thumb on the pulse of the emotional control. And I don't think he settles it when he gets irate.
And to Scott's point, you know what I mean? This is also what Jalen Hurts' 8th or 9th different year in a row with a different offensive coordinator.
College, from Bama through Oklahoma through Philly.
Yeah.
Every
so somewhere Cam Newton is smoking a cigar, like an Alabama player that just beat Tennessee, talking about I told you so. But but Philly is in trouble. Like we've been mixing these words. We've been talking about, hey, they're going to figure it out. They still got AJ Brown. They still got Devontae. Don't matter if you can't get them the ball. Don't matter if you can't get them the ball. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's a different way. That play was awesome where Mark Andrews went upfield on the Browns. But as we look at the Bears, specifically, when we came into this season, I was a little down on the Bears, right? Like I thought that Caleb Williams was going to need another year. I did like the Ben Johnson hire and think that he was going to take them somewhere. I just thought it would take a little bit longer. You know what I mean? I was team Detroit's not making the playoff. And guess what, Mr. Logical? On Thursday night, Detroit has the Cowboys coming in. And if they lose that game, they may not make the playoff.
This year seems to be a lot of really, really good teams. There's a lot of bad teams giving teams wins. And there's a lot of teams that are like taking wins out of the mouths of teams that you thought would be victors. Carolina's beaten Dallas, the Rams, and Green Bay this year. And they're probably in position to win NFC South. So it's a lot of good teams. There's some bad teams giving up wins. Everybody can make it. I know 14 seems like a lot, which I think is a lot. but I don't think Detroit's played like bad football to the point. Like, it's a couple of games, yeah, maybe not going for it 5 times on 4th down against Philly.
Well, that's why I
Uh,
told you going into last week's game against
yeah,
Against Green Bay the first time, against Kansas City, and against Philly, they were only averaging 13 points. So they're doing a good job of beating the teams that they're supposed to beat.
that false start timeout situation that Detroit went, that was a little bogus. Because that was a clear false start, and then Matt LaFleur called a timeout after that, which would have made it 4th and 6 instead of 4th and 1 inside of the 2-yard line.
See, luckily this ain't college football, because if this was college football, we'll be putting the Lions in the playoffs and say, get the Panthers out of here.
Yeah, I mean, like I like the system the way that it's built. Yeah, I think the NFC North, because people predicted that they were going to get multiple teams in. I don't know why they felt like it was going to be 3, but I think the NFC West is probably looking more like the 3-team one.
Yeah, there it is,
NFC
right there.
South, yes, NFC South is going to get 1. The North is going to get 2, and the West is going to get 3.
And the East is going to get 1.
Get 1. Yeah,
I
think Dallas's tie is going to hurt them. I think because Dallas on a 3-game winning streak, the tie they when you start out 3-5-1, when you are a team with that kind of offense, it hurts because it's a couple of games they're probably thinking like, man, I can't believe we gave that many points to Chicago. The way even though they beat the Giants, they kind of gave some people the blueprint of like, oh, you guys can't play the deep ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that hurt them for a couple more weeks. They made all the moves, and then Jerry Jones made some great moves. I just think that the moves were maybe, if he made the Quinnen Williams move 2 games earlier, I think they would gel. They would have gelled 3 weeks ago, or they would have gelled like 2 weeks before this 3-game winning streak. And I think that would have worked out better for him. But it's just having those 5 losses and a tie in your first, 9 games. That's gonna hurt them.
Well, Green Bay don't like the way this look right now. Saying like they like get us away from Philly, but but I'm all about this Rams 49ers.
You might want Philly because, like I said, it's looking a lot like 2023, where they started out 10-1, and then got basically pushed off the edge of the earth by Tampa Bay in the playoffs. Like no one saw that. No one saw them getting dismantled like that in the playoffs, but this is how very much like that this year.
And this is how slippery it is, right? Because if Dallas wins on Thursday, Detroit falls on down, right? But if Dallas loses, Carolina moves on up and puts Dallas in a precarious position. So we're entering that point of the season where each step is important and you can't afford to misstep anywhere. So, I got to ask you this question. I've been asking you this question, I feel like every week all season long. Are the Chiefs done? Because they got Houston this week. You know what I mean?
They're not done. Like I said, Chris Broussard said something on First Things First when I was watching it, and it made sense, but not a lot of time to kind of break it down. But he said this year's Chiefs look better than last year's Chiefs.
They do.
I think he might be speaking more offensively. Defensively, they've had a few rough games. Like they've given up 30 points in some of these losses, but Mahomes is like top 5 in most major passing categories. I believe touchdowns, he might be top 2 or 3. So they look more fluid. It's just that they're missing the trench play isn't there. The injuries on the offensive line, I think there's a little bit of lack of trust in the offensive line, and they don't get to the quarterback a lot. They create pressure, they blitz a lot, they create deflections, but they don't get a lot of turnovers off of it. They gave up a lot of 3rd and longs to Dallas last week. So that's going to be their Achilles heel, is the fact that the trench play, where they normally were pretty good, they haven't been that good this year. They'd have to go 11 and they'd have to go 5 in a row, 11-6. But they have Jacksonville, Buffalo, and who else?
Yeah,
The
well, right now
Chargers.
they haven't played Pittsburgh, but
tiebreaker.
Pittsburgh's in front of them. They play the Texans this week. And if you look, the funniest thing about this is they're only a game up on Miami right now. But like the thing that I think the Chiefs have going for them, because the Chiefs keep stepping on themselves more than anything else. The problem is that I don't know if any of these teams in front of them, can create the distance necessary enough for the Chiefs to feel eliminated. Because like think about it like this.
Yeah, but I think
but think about it like this. Look at it like this. So the Chargers, right? Herbert just broke his hand. Now, granted, it's the non-throwing hand, but he broke his hand, and they got Philly coming up. So even if Herbert plays this week, you got Jalen Carter and those guys coming after you. You know what I mean? So you could feel that the Chargers could lose that game, even if Herbert does play. That only leaves you a game behind the Chargers in that scenario if that plays out that way. You play Houston yourself. You know what I mean? Houston still can't score. Their defense does the thing, but they still can't score. You beat the Colts, and now the Colts look like they're in trouble. 3 weeks ago, the Colts.
You gotta be Houston, and you gotta hope the Colts keep sliding back, because that would give you the tiebreaker against those two teams.
And you know who the Colts got this week?
You still have to go 5-0.
No, definitely.
And you got to go 5-0, and you need 2 or 3 teams you need the Chargers, who are two wins up on you, and the tiebreaker. They got to lose the next 2 weeks, and you both got to be 8-6. You need a couple. You need teams that have been good all year.
But I think that can happen.
That have a bad stretch now.
So look, so the Chiefs get the Texans this week, right? Let's say they win.
Correct.
Just play it out. They win
7-6.
They get the Chargers next week. You know what I mean? So how healed or how healthy is Herbert going to be at that point? Right now, you might get Omarion Hampton back, but their offensive line is still beat up. You get Tennessee, and then by the time you play Denver to close out the year, Denver might have wrapped up the division already. You know what I mean? So
I get that, but even with the Chargers, if the Chargers have a 2-game skid and they're at 8-6, and then Kansas City goes on a 2-game win streak, because they get the Chargers. No, they get the Chargers.
They get the Chargers next week, and
they'll both be 8-6. That'll still give the Chargers a tiebreak. So the Chargers still ahead of them, and that'll probably have the Chargers at 7.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
but it's not like Buffalo is out here looking like world beaters either. You know what I mean? Like they were in trouble until Aaron Rodgers got hurt.
Everybody else has to go 3-2 and can play subpar football, where you have to play flawless 5-0 football.
And that's what I'm saying. If you break it out, if you break it out, right? So you got the Colts going to Jacksonville this weekend, where they haven't won since 2014, right? You know what I'm saying? The Colts still have to play Houston again. And it's at Houston this time around. You know what I mean? Jacksonville, if they win this weekend, they're in pretty good shape. They got the tiebreaker over the Chiefs anyway. In the North, you know what I'm saying? The Ravens and Steelers play this week. Both 6-6. And both of them are only a game or two games up on the Bengals. So and Buffalo plays the Bengals this week. So it's room here for Kansas City to get in. The key is they just got to not step on themselves. But with all that being said,
they have no margin for error. They have to play perfect football for the next month and a quarter.
Right.
And they have to hope that teams that are currently 8-4, so we're 12 games in, these teams have been either in the lead of the division at some point, or one of their players has looked like the MVP front runner at some point. So these teams have been clicking all year long. They need that team, one of two or three of them, to just falter.
Well, I think
at the same time they're playing perfect football.
So last thing on that real quick. So if I'm Kansas City, I'm looking at the Colts. Because like I said, they go to Jacksonville this week. They go to Seattle next week. And then they close with the 49ers and the Jaguars. So maybe the Colts got 2 more in them. I think that they definitely lose
that. That could be it. But that'll still move the Colts down, Bills up,
Right. But
and
then who are we trusting?
Houston.
Right. But who are we trusting in the North, right? Because, like I said, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, both 6-6. You know what I mean? So I'm projecting Baltimore to beat Pittsburgh this weekend. But we've been talking about it. Baltimore has won games. They've beat the Jets. They've beat Minnesota. But the Ravens offense still isn't anywhere near clicking.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's not
that's
impossible
the thing.
that the
So
Ravens
all these teams that aren't clicking are still ahead of them. That's what I'm
definitely.
saying. So
Well,
it's
the
like
Chiefs got that, but if it comes down to it, the
Chiefs
Chiefs
has a
got the
tiebreaker with
tiebreaker
the
over the
Ravens.
Ravens and the Colts. Those are the two teams.
But we're probably gonna touch on, is Pittsburgh ready to pack it in and say, hey,
No. Pittsburgh is not ready to pack it in. Pittsburgh is going to get it packed in. I'll put it
pause.
like that. No pause.
So it's like,
all
you mean like, so Tomlin, like, yeah, I think I would love for the Chiefs to be able to run the table and win these 5 games and make the playoffs. It's just that 3 of their 6 losses are to teams that are, even if they sputter, they have to 2 and 3 sputter while they go 5-0 for them to get locked in a 5 or 6. Because at 7 is probably so many different tiebreaking scenarios. We don't know how it's going to play out in the AFC South on the last week, and whatever happens with Jacksonville. Jacksonville can be leading the division at 9:00 that morning when the day starts, and then at all the games pan out, the Titans beat the Colts, and then Houston loses to Jacksonville, and Jacksonville slides down to 7, and Kansas City slides out at 11-6. And Jacksonville takes their spot.
That's what Houston has going for them. They've split with Jacksonville. Already they swept with the Titans, and now they beat the Colts. So Houston's sitting at 4-1 in the division. And they have that last game against the Colts at home. So that's where Jacksonville, the winner of the game this weekend, this is where it gets very precarious, because if you're the Colts, you can't lose that game to Jacksonville. You can't, because that'll give you 3 losses in a row heading into Seattle. So now I got to worry about, are they packing it in? You know what I mean? So, but Mr. Logical.
Yeah.
Let's put on your Virginia hat for a second.
Let's hear it.
Fire Mike Tomlin chance?
1969. It's 12 years before you and I were born, is when Chuck Noll got hired by the Steelers. It was from Chuck Noll to Bill Cowher to Mike Tomlin. That's 3 head coaches since 1969. Some Super Bowl success, I believe 6 total Super Bowl wins in that time frame.
Pittsburgh,
stability, but Pittsburgh is, I think, on the field, I think a lot of their players are old. I think Tomlin has been there so long that I think a conversation where you mutually part ways is more likely out of just respect, but they can't bring him back just to keep the narrative going that they've only had 3 coaches since the 60s.
Okay.
Because you can't run it back with Aaron Rodgers. 36-year-old Aaron Rodgers, maybe. But like guys into their 40s, it's like, listen, that's not a common guy you should rest your franchise's wishes on. I'm not saying he's not a great quarterback and hasn't been great his entire career. But at some point you have to like move on. I think this year is that time. And if you think about it, it seems like a lot of teams with good coaches and good quarterback combos, it might be a lot of Splitsvilles. I'm saying Buffalo, if they don't make a deep run, I know you've been calling for a couple of years, wouldn't surprise me. Rumors about Green Bay and Matt LaFleur, I would not sign up for that if I'm a Green Bay fan or owner, or if I've been to a Green Bay game and I bought a jersey, I would not sign up to lose Matt LaFleur and split that relationship between him and Jordan Love. But that's a piece. John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I think that could be a potential. Like, hey, we've been doing this too long. We might need to shuffle this up. Obviously, the Raiders, I think that's going to be open. So I think there's going to be a lot of just openings of coaches that we probably didn't see it coming, other than like what I just kind of prognosticated. And if it comes to that point, it comes to that. But it's nothing wrong with recognizing, like, you know what, we have to go a different direction. And that's just so many levels with that team, between coaching staff, the players. I get it that Pittsburgh has like this mantra of how they play, but they might need to revamp that.
So like,
this might be the year to do that.
So I think Mike Tomlin should have left Pittsburgh about 2 years ago on his own accord. The problem is, you know what I mean, when you think about this from a, as you would say, a logical standpoint, I don't know how much he controls the roster. You know, he's obviously not the GM, but I don't know. I would like to think that he has the type of cachet to walk in and say, this is what I want. This is what I need. Make it happen, or, something along those lines. But
These
I can't
are the
say
players
that
I want. You guys figure out how to use a draft capital to.
Right. But I can't say like definitively these are Mike Tomlin's calls. Now I can imagine he went and maybe got Aaron Rodgers, especially for how long the Steelers waited on him. I could see that as a Tomlin thing. But with some of these other players that are on the roster, the Roman Wilsons, getting, even though he's played well, Kenneth Gainwell, he's played well, but he's not like a top tier back. And we know Pittsburgh's identity is toughness and running the football. So from those standpoints, if I'm Mike Tomlin, I'm looking at the Steelers and I'm going, bro, why are y'all trying to tie Mason Rudolph to me? Every time I turn around, I see Mason Rudolph. You know what I mean? Like, every time I look around, you got me DK Metcalf. That's cool. But I need another receiver so we can actually take advantage of having DK Metcalf.
You sent them away.
Right. And then you talked about the age of the defense. Guys like TJ. Do you know that Buffalo, this past weekend in that game that we're talking about, Buffalo ran for 249 yards against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Imagine saying that anytime in the last 15 years that somebody ran for 249 against the Steelers.
These guys are human, man.
I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it.
Me and you've been doing this podcast for 3 years. Twice a week consistently for 3 years. If March comes around and it's like, you can't get a hold of me, I don't answer the messages on Facebook, or like I'm always late, I'm just like, I'm tired, or I'm drinking while we try and do the podcast, or I got shit going on, or I'm never at home, like I got random shit in the background, you can be like, yo, dog, we've been doing this together for a long time. We've been successful, but I'm not putting up the effort to reach out to all these people and answer all these emails if you can't be ready to go. I think the defense, like, yo, I'm not going out here chasing these guys down if you can't go out there and get a drive going. I can't go over here and get a good breather. I can't get a breather, a water, maybe a piss break in a tent before I got to come back out talking about punt ready. Like,
that's fine. That's fine.
Just came off the field.
Give up 160, not 249.
At a certain point, it's like, fuck you. I want to get back to the bench. I'm done. I'm done with the Mason Rudolph experience too. Maybe some of these guys, like, we see it happen with good teams all the time. Look at Cincinnati. Jamar Chase hasn't said anything funny while mic'd up all year until last week when they was beating Baltimore ass, and the dude came out with the coat. He was like, yo, let me get that coat. He's like laughing and joking. He's been spitting on people, slapping and tackling people, cussing people's grandmas out all year long because of the frustration, yelling at the defense. You can't get one fucking stop. Joe Burrow comes back. They still 4-8. But they look different because the playmaker. Listen, they don't have the players. They don't have the players in Pittsburgh to compete. They just have a coach that gets people ready to succeed at a higher level than they might be playing on, and it ends up costing them draft picks because now they're drafting 20th every year, 22nd every year.
Well, I don't know. I think that Pittsburgh fans have the right to be frustrated. They haven't won a playoff game since 2017. We talked about 6 Super Bowls. They were the first team to win 6 Super Bowls. You know what I mean? And now another team has come and joined them. So I can understand from a certain standpoint Pittsburgh being frustrated. Do you think that there's any chance that somebody like a Dan Quinn could be fired?
No, unless because of the injuries, he shouldn't be fired. But unless they blame Jaden Daniels' injury on him, and that they don't get over that.
Yeah, I don't think he should be fired, but I have heard his name on the rumor mill. Speaking of injuries, does Raheem Morris get the injury excuse?
No, Raheem Morris doesn't, because Raheem Morris doesn't manage the game well. Like the team isn't prepared weekly. The way they played against Buffalo should be the standard, and teams should have to beat you at your best. Like you should be able to play your best football because you made your plan all week. Like if I'm cooking food for myself that I know I like to eat, I shouldn't come back in the kitchen and be like, "Oh, this is terrible." Like I planned this out. I picked it. I went to the store. I bought it. I marinated it. I set the temperature. I read the instructions. This part is all me. So everything that I put onto this plate needs to taste well because I put the effort in. And if it doesn't, it's my fault. Every single week, they don't put out a solid effort that's consistent. They put out the same plays. It's the same exact formations, and it's very predictable. But like the preparedness to go out there, like it was like the Colts game. They sacked Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, like maybe a minute to maybe 59 seconds left, and it was going to be 3rd and long. He didn't call a timeout.
I remember.
The Colts ran off like 30 seconds, and then they punted the ball, and we ended up getting the ball with like 12 or 18 seconds.
Ended up losing in overtime.
But it's like there, you call a timeout. You force the next play, incomplete pass, whatever, call another timeout. You're getting the ball back after the punt with probably like 44 seconds, 45 seconds. But those kind of things don't happen. That's why I think he gets fired. Personally, that's why I would get rid of him and his staff, because the team doesn't look prepared every week. Arthur Blank won't do that.
So on a lighter note, does Younghoe Koo get fired?
When it happened, I was like, he probably might be one of the nicest guys you ever meet in your life. Like I never met him, but you could tell he just like helps old people across the street. He probably has a charity, reads the kids, teaches them how to do algebra, all kinds of stuff. He probably is like when it comes down to just making these kicks, like that's your whole job. At a minimum, kick the ball. Like, I don't know. Like, I didn't hear an explanation for it, but it was like when I saw it happen, I was like, "Dog, did you kick the ground? It was dry. It wasn't even raining."
He just got stuck.
Weird. Like he kicked straight into the ground. I'm surprised he didn't break something.
Yeah.
Luckily, he doesn't have a big leg.
Shit, he might have wanted to break something like that. That'd be less embarrassing, I guess. But as we move on, Mr. Logical.
He was better off falling like Charlie Brown.
It's Tuesday night. You know what that means, don't you?
Some of this committee cockamamie.
Yes, sir. So here are, and I don't know where this timer thing came from here, but I don't like this timer. But anyway, as we see, we have the top 25 here. Is there anything, Mr. Logical, that stands out to you?
12 through 15 have a bit of an issue with. I'm almost slightly convinced that 10 and 12 might need to be swapped. I'll let you I forgot how you felt about that, but like I heard something today that kind of like convinced me, like, you know what? You might have a point. I don't like the fact that Utah keeps slipping. It's weird. Um, Texas with the 3 losses isn't getting in. So why even have them at 13? So
Because
it's
you
like
still got to rank them somewhere.
they keep getting. How are they higher than Utah? How are they higher than Vandy? It's just like put them at 15. Like why? Like Utah's moved down 3 weeks in a row after wins.
Mm-hmm.
They've moved down. So like I think that's strange. Miami, if you're not going to get Miami in, just having them where they are, knowing that you're going to have to basically ignore a founding principle of the committee to get 12 and 13 in. Because you're going to have to either ignore, you're going to have to do like, you're going to have to do something silly like they did with Florida State, like, oh, you lost your quarterback. You can't be in the last 4. So Ole Miss, your coach is gone. Do they move them out and say flat out like, hey, we don't think you're a whole team? I doubt they do that because they have them so high up. But I think if they were at 10, they probably would.
So
getting Miami in, and like I just feel like the way they're setting up these dominoes it's setting up for them to hope something crazy happens over this weekend. But I don't think there's any scenarios that it really allow them to just kind of blow up the final 4 spots and just insert who they want. Because I don't think the matchups really apply, right?
Well, it depends on how you want to look at it. So going back real quick to your 10 versus 12 thing, you're probably talking about that Colin Cowherd video where
they clip that. Yeah. And I was like,
yeah. So this is we've talked about this a lot, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but the way that I look at the 10 and 12 thing, Miami or Notre Dame and Miami respectively, is people keep saying it was week 1, Notre Dame got better as the season went on. I can buy that, but I can also look at Notre Dame's schedule and see the Syracuses and the NC States and these teams like that they played at Boston College, that they played and beat. So yes, they did get better, but a lot of it was also byproduct of who they played. Whereas Miami 2-3 weeks ago, we could say, hey, you know what? They lost to Louisville. They lost to SMU. They shouldn't have done that. Okay, cool. I ain't going to argue against that. But now, as we sit here on December 2nd, year of our Lord 2025, now I got to look at the whole picture. I can't just choose these snippets of here's 2 weeks at a time where Miami looked bad. Here's 2 weeks where Notre Dame lost 2 games. Here's this, here's that.
And the committee, and like I said, now you have the whole picture. The committee has the whole picture and the statement of, we looked at the whole picture. This is a statement written straight out of ChatGPT. We looked at the whole season, not just the snippets, and we felt like the other 11 games were even. So we looked at the head-to-head matchup and saw Miami beat Notre Dame.
That's simple.
And that's why we're putting them ahead.
Simple.
So even if you got mad about it, at least that's a real statement. Hey, we looked at the whole season.
Well, I know
we got the other 11 games. We did our comparisons, scoring defense, rush defense, time of the season, the spread, all this other math. It pretty much washes out because it's the same type of.
But I know that the NFL is different, right? The NFL is different. So, correct. But if the Chiefs and Chargers, because we were just talking about that, if the Chiefs and Chargers finish with the same record, but the tiebreakers lean towards the Chargers, we're not going to say put Kansas City in because the Chargers lost to the Giants.
Yeah, that's
not a thing. Yeah, that's not a thing. So that's where, like, for me, it's simple because a lot of people keep saying it was week 1. Notre Dame had a new quarterback that went on the road. Okay, cool. If he'd have won that game, you'd have said he should be the Heisman.
A
You know what
lot
I'm
of
saying?
teams start out with new quarterbacks. It's literally it's college football. Most teams start out with a new.
No.
Ohio State got a new quarterback, and he hits 8 out of 10 passes. That's nothing to do with like how new you are at the position.
So where Miami screwed themselves for real was that they didn't finish the job. They dominated Notre Dame for 56 minutes of that game. And Notre Dame got some late scores to lose by 3. So people are just looking at a 3-point game. Hey, they lost by 3 on the road with a first-time quarterback. You know, that's not a definitive win or whatever the case may be. Just like if you look at Miami and Florida State, for example, you look at the final score, you see a 9-point game. If you watch the actual game, you saw Miami up about 20 until they fell asleep. So like that's what's hurting Miami right now is that they didn't keep their foot on the gas and on Notre Dame's neck to win that game by 17 points. Because if you win it by that, you can't even have none of this conversation because you're looking at the score and saying Miami beat the hell out of them. Now, as to your other question that you asked. So this is the scenario. So you got Alabama and Georgia in the SEC championship game. You know, the problem is for Alabama, if they lose this SEC championship game, they have a 14-point loss to Florida State, who Miami's going to look at and say, we dominated Florida State in that same stadium that you lost to Florida State in. Now, I was arguing with somebody on YouTube and on TikTok earlier, right? Like last year, the committee honored the conference championship game, but some of those committee members are not the same. And if you're Alabama, yes, you lost in the conference championship game, but this is why the playoff is stupid in the first place. Because if I lose in the NFC championship game, I don't get another chance at the Super Bowl. So if you lose in your conference championship game, that's that should be theoretically an elimination point. How you going to enter the playoff with a loss? It don't even make sense. You know what I'm saying? But anyway.
Yeah,
but anyway,
the committee put themselves in a position to where
because
that gives Alabama the third loss. So
right,
are you putting the 3-loss Alabama team?
I think that they will. I would not, but I think that they will. But here's the real question. So Alabama beats Georgia. You know, play it out. Alabama beats Georgia. Now you're talking about SEC champions. So theoretically, you're going to have Alabama jump a lot of these teams, so they could get the first round bye because they're the SEC champion. But then I'm at number
Oklahoma.
Right, that's what I was just about to say. Then I'm at number 8 going, but I beat them in Tuscaloosa. So, like, yeah, they the conference champion, but where's my head-to-head? You know what I'm saying? We got the head-to-head right now. You know what I'm saying? But where's the head-to-head?
This is only going to make the argument for 16 teams more.
Yes.
I personally, if they did 16 teams, they would have to alter how they did the playoffs. Like the games would have to start, like they would have to move everything up. We talked about that in before. They got to move everything up. Everyone has to start that first game the week before Labor Day weekend. So pretty much as soon as kids get back to campus in August, it's a football game that Saturday, and they're playing it out. Rivalry games happen before Thanksgiving. Conference championship games happen the weekend of Thanksgiving, and this week we get our first playoff game. That's the only way that's going to be able to do if you can go to 16 teams.
Well, here's the real scenario. What if Alabama and Texas Tech lose? Now what do you do? Because, like, okay, walk it out. So right now, BYU is a 1-loss team. You know, that only loss is at Texas Tech. So they beat Texas Tech. They avenged their loss, right? And then, you know, Texas Tech lost their other game to Arizona State with their backup quarterback. So maybe you give them a little grace. You know, now, if Texas flip it and Texas Tech wins, BYU's at 11 right now. Now you get into that scenario of Alabama loss, BYU loss. Now I got this Miami Notre Dame thing really looking at me in the face. But not only that, But now I got to judge not only Miami and Notre Dame, but Miami and Notre Dame against a team that just lost the SEC title game.
Yeah, but I think you can still hit them with that same line with the Miami Notre Dame. We looked at the whole season. The 11 games were basically a wash. We went to the head-to-head and decided that the head-to-head has to matter. And they moved Miami into the 12. I don't know how you get Texas in.
I don't think you can.
I think the SEC, like that Big 12 Texas Tech leeway, I don't think that exists. I think the SEC gets a little more leeway because at the top, they do have the better team. They normally have 4. Every other conference has 2. One really good team or one top team that's, something in 1 every year. Then they have a couple more teams that are 10-2. Big 12 ends up like that most years. The Big 10 has Ohio State, so that's normally like your dominant team. The rest of those teams kind of trickle in at 10-2, whereas the SEC tends to have one team at 11-1 and 3 teams at 10-2 almost every year, or sometimes even a couple teams with 11 wins. The next two teams are at 10-2, and then the third team is 9-3, and they beat one of the teams to give the top team their one loss. So you get like 5 teams jumbled into the same kind of conversation, whereas the Big 12, Big 10, ACC only gets about 2 teams into that muddled conversation. So when everything kind of settles, 3 or 4 of the SEC schools, because they've been in that conversation all year, they figure out a way to get that domino into the setup.
But this is the problem, right? So, like we talked about this, right? You're supposed to look at it week to week, right? Every week there should be some changes, some notable changes, right?
But the realistic look is conference to conference. It's not
I know, and that's where I'm going with this. But that's where I'm going with this. So Texas A&M, who I've been advocating for most of the year, you know what I'm saying? But being objective here, they lost to Texas last week. It was their first loss of the season. So I'm not going to bang on a team for losing their first game of the season and the last game of the season. But now that they've lost a game, I got to go back and look at it. Because now when we look at this top 25 right now, saying A&M did not play Georgia. They did not play Ole Miss. They did not play Oklahoma. They did not play Bama. They did not play Vanderbilt. You know what I mean? Missouri is finally gone out of the top 25. So now when you peel it back, what's the difference between A&M and Miami? Because A&M lost to Texas this week, which is considered a good loss. But A&M's only good win is Notre Dame. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Miami, just last week, SMU was ranked. But then they lost to Cal, so now they're not ranked. So now people are going to say, well, they lost to 2 unranked teams when rankings are just opinions to begin with.
Yes, then this is to go with you there. The conversation about Texas A&M hasn't gone on longer than the one about Miami and Notre Dame.
Right.
The Texas 3-loss conversation, that's going to drive because we talk about who they didn't play. Indiana didn't play a lot of teams last year. They lost their 1 game against Ohio State. They were in.
Yeah.
It's no matter what system they implement, as long as it's opinion based, it's always going to be college football. When did you lose? Who did you lose to? Or when did you lose? Or who did you lose to? Because sometimes it's when, sometimes it's who. So if you lose to Notre Dame early, not bad. But if you lose to Miami late, it can be bad. So it's like they always figure out a way to say, oh, you lost in November. It's not enough time to recover. Oh, you lost early with a freshman quarterback. You had time to recover. Your team is still your team.
And then, but on top of that, look at number 17 right now.
They got to move up if they beat Duke.
It's all, but it's all in their hands, right? Because if they lose that game to Duke, you got Tulane sitting there at 20. They play 24 this weekend on Friday night. Okay, American champion is probably in. Now look at number 25. Say a 22-point favorite in their conference championship game against Troy. If Duke at 7-5 beats Virginia,
James Madison gets into this college football playoff.
Possibly. And now we're back where we started, because 2 years ago,
they just decide to do a Hail Mary, just put Duke ahead of JMU just because.
And see, and that's the thing, right? Because going back to 2 years ago, they told Florida State, hey, your quarterback is gone. We ain't got room for you. But that was only a 4-team playoff. It was only 4 teams then. So, okay.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? But in this scenario, we got 12 that we got to fill out. Top 5 conference champions go. It's hard to have the conversations that we've had, that they've had, and then we go, well, a 5-loss conference champion is one of the 12 best teams in the country. And oh, by the way, Mr. Logical, one of those games that Duke lost was to number 20 Tulane. You know what I'm saying? So
I don't envy the committee because they put themselves in this position for sure. I don't envy them at all.
And then
I felt like the format was always bad. Yeah, I never liked the format. I didn't like the automatic qualifiers. I felt like the automatic qualifiers was the big conferences ensuring that they got people in, not realizing you didn't need to do that. You were going to. Ole Miss was always going to be ranked above Tulane. 11-1 Tulane, 11-1 Ole Miss. Ole Miss is always going to be higher. Like, it's just because they're in the SEC. So to have all these automatic bids and this bid here and this one here, it felt like just a greedy tactic to ensure that you can flood the proverbial market with your high value teams because you're selling out NFL stadiums. And I just think they started the idea from championship and went back versus regular season. What did the teams earn? Each team that's competing in this 12-team playoff, the higher seeded team deserved and earned a home playoff game. Like, that's what you play your whole season for. I talk about my son's high school team. It was like 2 years in a row. If they would have won like one more game, they would have earned a home playoff game, which is like a big deal. It's a big deal, especially when you're in high school. It's a big deal to earn a home playoff game. But yet, when they get to college, the money completely strips away that idea. So I think they went championship. How do we make the championship as big as possible monetarily? And then they built back from there. It was, okay, how do we ensure that Pasadena and the Rose Bowl committee gets their money? How do we ensure that Tostitos, gets their money? How do we ensure, instead of being like, how do we ensure that the players who played 12 or 13 games this year, how do they maximize their season? I think that's the problem, because they didn't go player, playoffs, championship. They went sponsorship, championship. How do we appease that piece? We'll fill it in with the teams later.
Well, the problem is that college football defies what we know about sports. You know what I mean? So, like, when you look at any other sport, any other level, winning your division or your conference gets you a seat at the table. You know what I mean? Like, we don't say, hey, we let the 7-9 Seattle Seahawks in the playoffs one year. You know what I mean?
He had the greatest run of all time. It rested on a Richter scale.
Right. So we're looking at this bracket as we stand right now. You know what I mean? And if this stays like this, which it won't, because, there's games this weekend, but, you put Ohio State in that Oregon position again, where, potentially where you're undefeated, and then you got to get the winner of Bama and Oklahoma in the second round, and it's not even a home game.
Not at home, but yet Oklahoma's going to get a home game at an 8 seed, and I'm a 1 seed, and I'm playing that game Ohio State, says Ohio State, Oklahoma. That game is probably either where. It's in Texas,
It's probably going to be
Dallas.
well, Ohio State. It'll probably be it might be in the Rose Bowl, but basically Ohio State will get the pick. As the 1 seed, they'll get to pick the location.
Yeah, so it'll be in California, Texas, New Orleans, or Georgia, because it's probably Atlanta, the Superdome in New Orleans, the Jerry World, Miami, Arizona, or California. None of these places are anywhere near Columbus, Ohio, and they played all year long, dominated all year long, and now they're not going to get to go out there on their home field. That sells. It's 100,000 seats still. Like the number of people at the game is still the same. I don't know why you even need to involve NFL stadiums.
Right. Now, here's the other thing. As we look at this,
excuse me,
all this talk, we've been talking about Ole Miss, right? Like, hey, Lane Kiffin left. He did let Charlie Weiss go back. So Charlie Weiss is going to be on staff for the playoffs. So we go back and look at that. And people have been saying, hey, should Ole Miss be left out? Should Ole Miss's seed drop? I got a question for you, Mr. Logical. Should we be dropping Oregon now that their offensive coordinator is the new head coach at Kentucky, and it looks like their defensive coordinator is finalizing a contract to become the new head coach at Cal? So do we got to drop Oregon too?
Nah, it's like the head coach is a little different, but the team still, like, X's and O's, Jimmy's and Joe's. The players still made the plays happen. I didn't think Florida State should have lost out in their opportunity because they lost their quarterback. I just knew that the committee wasn't going to pick between Texas and Bama because Texas beat Bama.
Right.
And they should have just said
SEC champion. You're not going to have a playoff without the SEC champion.
You can't. Yeah. So that was the, that was just short straw, and it was easy. It was low hanging fruit for the committee to go with. This year, Ole Miss has been cemented in the middle of this 12 the entire year. They're in the proverbial catbird seat because they don't have to play and risk a second loss for the championship. They're going to get a home playoff game. That's another thing. So they're going to get a home playoff game, while Georgia, granted, Georgia plays, and they're probably going to play the SEC championship in Atlanta, and they're probably going to play whatever bowl game that they play in Atlanta. So I think they're pretty much locked in. Yeah. Indiana, nowhere near Bloomington, Indiana, where their game be. So it's like they came up with an idea that was better, what they thought was better than the BCS, which is the 4 teams. I felt it felt kind of exclusive, like, hey, we don't even think the rest of you guys can compete. We only think 4 teams are worthy of even competing for the national championship. It felt kind of elitist, but it started to kind of pan out to where teams like Bama, LSU, Clemson, these top teams that were top all year long, they looked the part in these national championship matchups, in the playoff matchups. This year, in the last couple of years, with this 12-team playoff, it's not going to be perfect until you really establish, like, the way Division II does it, the way FCS does it, where it's like, listen, popularity be damned. We want to crown a champion. What are the parameters to get you here? Oh, you won your conference? Boom. You're number 1. You have 8 wins, you're 24. Match up over the next 4 to 6 weeks, however it lines up, play football. And if the number 24 ranked team out of your 24 team bracket is playing against the number 2 team in the bracket for the championship, then so be it. Play it out as it's supposed to be played out. And if the number 24 team goes on that miracle run, a la the Eli Manning helmet catch Giants when they beat the then 18-0 New England Patriots, that's the champion you have. We're not going to go back and give Tom Brady an additional ring because we felt like the other team shouldn't have been in the playoff. It's a playoff for a reason. It's not going to be perfect. Just be as transparent as possible. We know the fuckery is about. We know the shenanigans are about. Just keep it. Just say it out loud.
All
If you
right.
try to dance around it, then people are going to slice it apart. If you come out there and say, listen, we thought Miami was better than Notre Dame, so we voted on it. We
Yeah,
moved them
and
up.
that's the thing, right? Is like I told I don't know if I was talking to you or when Rez was filling in the other day, but I made the comment like if Miami and Notre Dame played today, I would pick Notre Dame to win. You know what I mean? And oh, by the way, I picked Notre Dame to win when they played the first time. And it didn't matter. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So I could think what I want, but why play the games if we're not going to honor the results and put all these parameters around why the result that we saw didn't matter? Because like, look at that Texas and Vanderbilt. You brought that up earlier. You know, Texas has one more loss than Vanderbilt. Texas also played Ohio State and Vanderbilt did not. You know what I mean? It was another one of those games where Texas dominated. Vanderbilt made the late push. You know, Vanderbilt has one less loss. But I think that Texas is a better team than Vanderbilt. So it just depends on, like, is schedule more important or is having that one less loss?
In that case, we're going to have to honor the head-to-head.
Right. And I think that's what hurts Utah, to answer your question that I never answered. I think that's what hurts Utah is the committee didn't rank Utah right to begin with, because Utah, both of their losses are to the teams that are playing in the Big 12 championship game right now.
Correct.
So going off of the good loss theory, you know, Utah should be higher. You know what I'm saying? But then when you peel it back and we look back at who did Utah actually beat, they haven't beat anybody that's in the top 25 right now.
Yeah, but in that same vein, a lot of schools are in that boat where we talk about it every year. The SEC schools just stay in the top 25 all year until they're like fodder. It basically just they're used as to just bolster the other team's stats so they can say, oh, Alabama has 5 top 25 wins. Well, yeah, sometimes you'll have a team that'll be like 1 and 2 that started out 8, and then they get their win. Now they're 24, but really they're going to finish their season, 5 and 7. But at the time when they played in the end of September, they were 1 and 2 and they were ranked 24. So now that gives that team a top 25 win. So we talk about the rankings. If Bama wasn't playing in the ACC, but if Bama, well, that's the thing. Everybody can't play everybody.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, what's Utah's best win? Like, maybe, I'll call it Arizona State, since Arizona State had a chance to.
I really like that comeback win against Kansas State, even though they gave up like 400 some yards rushing, and I get it. Like Utah's record. When you're a Big 12 school, you're a small school, you're out of the mainstream, like the SEC and the Big 10, they want 6 of those teams in off rip.
Right, but
no matter how you slice.
But see, this is the problem. The best team
when you're from the outside of that, you gotta either schedule a tough team or you gotta go undefeated.
And
they'll give you some leeway with one loss. And that's the problem.
But to your point, though, to your question, that's
the
problem.
Just jump too many. They jump too many SEC schools. They jump too many Big 10 schools from 17 to 14 to 10.
So realistically,
these middle weeks where it's like, were they ever really a top 12 team in the country? Like, no,
right? They weren't, but they were, and then you just moved them for no reason.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you gave Vanderbilt, theoretically, you gave Vanderbilt the credit for beating the Tennessee team that is not ranked finally now, because Vanderbilt is the reason that Tennessee's not ranked now. So you gave Vanderbilt that credit, but to do that, you punished Utah, and then you moved Texas up because they beat A&M. So if Michigan would have beat Ohio State, they would have jumped Utah too, probably. So that's just where we are. You know what I mean? But to finish this off real quick, Mr. Logical, I brought it up already. Kentucky looks like they're hiring Will Stein. offensive coordinator from Oregon. He's born in Louisville. He said he grew up a Kentucky Wildcat fan. He was a quarterback for Louisville. He was down here at UTSA. Go Runners. As the offensive coordinator, did a great job with Frank Harris. And then he went to Oregon. And then, you know what I mean? Like, while he was at Oregon, he made Bo Nix look better than anybody thought Bo Nix could ever look. He had Dylan Gabriel last year, Dante Moore this year. So, like, 36 years old, I like it. You know what I mean? But on the other side of that, it sounds like Tosh Lapoy, former player at Cal, is probably going to be Cal's head coach by the end of the night here. So I'll hold off on any thoughts until they make that official. It looks like Kalani Sitake at BYU is actually turning down Penn State. So, if I remember correctly, Penn State was the first Power 5 team that fired their coach, unless Virginia Tech and UCLA did it first.
I think it was around the same time, but UCLA and Virginia Tech, even if it was like in different weeks, Penn State was still a bigger draw. But right. I read something that the Crumble Cookie CEO, like, pardon the pun, sweetened the pot to keep Sitake in BYU.
Right.
And now I know why Crumble Cookies are terrible. It's because it's a Utah cookie company. That's not what Utah does. If it was a Utah, like, dry rub, like, because Traeger is from Utah, OGO bags, tough, gritty, that's what Utah does. They don't do cookies. Mormons don't do sugar. It's like sugar, caffeine. Like, if you got a Mormon-owned soda company, don't drink that.
Well, to be technical, to be technical and factually correct, Traeger is Oregon, but the point remains the same.
Well, they have a lot of warehouses in Utah, and the mountain on the thing looks like a Utah mountain range, in my opinion.
So of course, with the Will
That's
Stein
my wood
thing,
chips come from. They come from West Valley.
So of course, with the Will Stein thing, that means that Mark Stoops got fired the other day. All-time winning coach in Kentucky football history. He had his press conference. They asked him, like, and he was like, "Hey, I plan on being here. Like, I'm not going anywhere." And then we woke up Sunday and you're out of here.
Death note.
You know what I mean? So keep your eye out. Keep your eye out, because, like I said, I think that Iowa, if it comes open, because Kurt Ferentz is only getting older, that's his alma mater. Keep your eye out there. Mr. Logical, did you see who Michigan State hired?
Didn't they hire what's that guy? Did they hire a black coach?
No, they hired Pat Fitzgerald from Northwestern, who, of course, got removed because of the hazing, the alleged hazing, and all that kind of stuff going on, which is a bold move, Cotton, considering that you just fired a coach 2 years ago for phone sex. Yeah,
Michigan State has some issues. They had the doctor with the gymnastics team that sued, and they had to pay a lot of money. I think I'm staying away from anybody that had any level of controversy, even if it was like, hey, it didn't pan out the way. Like, I don't even want that conversation to come back up.
Yeah, so the good news for Michigan State is that, being that he was at Northwestern for such a long time, he opened up recruiting roads to Chicago and Chicagoland. So he should be able to get talent. And remember, he was at Northwestern, so he was restricted on the type of players he could bring in. So now,
like, he could lawyers and journalists.
Yeah, so now you can get some of these thugs. You know what I'm saying? Get in there, Michigan State. Bob Chesney, James Madison, head coach, headed to UCLA. So, so here we are with another one of these situations where he's on the brink of making the playoffs.
They got to fix the calendar.
But the good news, Mr. Logical, the good news is UCLA is allowing him to stay with James Madison through whatever happens. So
yeah, I don't care. I need a rule in place. I'm a logical person. I don't need nuance to something as simple as, like, you can start a new job while your old job is still working. Like when I was launching an aircraft, I can't just marshal it out and be like, all right, you got it, and just walk away and let the pilot just figure it out. Like, I got to finish that job. I got to make sure they're on the lines on their way out, and then when it comes back, I got to catch it, put it to bed. or we turn over to another shift. But you don't just like, oh, you know what? We're in the middle of this. I'm out. Like that's just not what you do. Like it just doesn't make any sense. And for them to be able to do this with so many lives on the line. Like if you look at every coaching staff, they're probably not taking the entire staff. And if they are taking their entire staff, say there's 10 coaches, families, that could be, realistically anywhere from like 30 to 40 people moving from Virginia to California, private schools, babysitters, new jobs, spouses' jobs. The desire, do I want to go west? Okay, I'm going to stay here. Now the new guy, does the new guy keep me? So much goes into it that everybody needs to have time where like that's the sole focus. So at the end of the NFL season, what the Super Bowl is the second Sunday in February, and then they have that time before like the new league year starts. They had about 5 or 6 weeks. Guys can figure out where they're moving to, where they're going, if they want to stay, if they want to renegotiate contracts. They have a real time limit. Like I can't be here December 1st or December 2nd, 3 weeks before Christmas, trying to figure out, are we going to be living in Virginia or we moving to California early because we got to recruit these kids who are still probably in state championship.
I know,
football
even in the
games are happening this
military,
weekend.
PCS season is like May or June.
Yeah, or at least you get a heads up. Like,
Yeah.
I got orders when you leaving. Oh, I leave in July. Like you'll find out in October, November,
Yeah.
December.
So
in short notice is still like 3 or 4 months. That's short notice.
Right. So they always
These guys
ask,
leaving in a week.
So they always ask if lightning can strike in the same place twice. So James Madison has to hope that it strikes 3 times because remember, they lost Kurt Signetti. They brought in Chesney from Holy Cross. He went 20-5 in 2 years at James Madison. He won their first bowl game in school history last year. Now, granted, they've only been FBS since 2022, but still. So now they got to do it a 3rd time. Arkansas, reports came out last week that they were going to get Alex Golish from South Florida. They ended up with Ryan Silverfield from Memphis, who Alex Golish can't beat. He's 0-3 against. But Memphis was supposed to be running the AAC with all the FedEx money, and they couldn't even do that. So now Arkansas fans are saying, y'all brought us a coach that had all the advantages in the American, and he couldn't win there. He couldn't win the conference there. Now you're
going to bring it back here to be 11 or 12 in the SEC.
Yeah, so then Alex Golish, who was supposed to go to Arkansas, is going to Auburn. So, he's going down to Jordan Hare on the Plains. Why is Alex Golish important? Because he was the architect. He was the offensive coordinator of that Tennessee offense for Josh Heupel before he went to South Florida. So the year that they beat Bama, where Mr. Logical will remind you that the kicker committed a false start.
Absolutely.
Yes. Alex Golish was the engineer of that offense. So he's going down to Auburn now. We talked about Tulane earlier. Tulane playing for it's not the AAC anymore. The American on Friday against North Texas. Well, their coach, John Summerall, is the new coach at Florida. So now Florida fans are upset because they thought they were getting Lane Kiffin, and we had to settle for Tulane guy.
You got a Lane.
I think they still got a good coach.
They just got the wrong Lane. They thought they were getting Lane Kiffin. Like, now you got Tulane.
I think they still got a good coach. Then you got Jamarcus Shepard, who is the co-defensive coordinator at Alabama, who's going to the playoff potentially as well. He's leaving to take over Oregon State. Saying shout out to Oregon State for hiring a black dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I ain't think you had it in recruiting. You know what I'm saying? And then finally, how awesome is it, Mr. Logical, that you could be a quarterback, number 1 draft pick in the NFL draft. You retire early because of injuries and whatnot, but then your school calls you and says, we want you to be our general manager. And what do you get to do? You get to hire your college quarterback backup as your new head coach. So Andrew Luck went to my Washington Commanders, took my quarterback coach, Tavita Pritchard, who was his backup when he was the quarterback at Stanford. And there's your new Stanford head coach.
Life's all about relationships.
It's all about relationships.
Yeah. So looks like Ole Miss should call a guy who used to coach a college down in Mississippi. See if he wants to bring his talents down to Oxford.
Well, Ole Miss hired their defensive coordinator now. He's the permanent head coach now.
It says permanent?
Yeah, it's permanent.
Or
permanent.
he botches this playoff experience and is like, listen.
No, it's permanent. He was considered to be the best recruiter out of the coaches on the team too. So, and he comes from that Nick Saban tree. He won a national title as Nick Saban's defensive coordinator.
So he had a cup of coffee with Nick Saban.
Yep, there you go. So he's fine.
And
then
Sean
finally,
McVay.
I did forget one. Neil Brown, former head coach of West Virginia, has been hired as the North Texas head coach. So you got North Texas and Tulane playing for the American Friday. Winner probably gets into the playoffs. Both coaches gone.
They got to fix the calendar. It's that simple. Like I understand, and this is the don't piss in my pocket and tell me it's random part. They say they got to get these guys in for academics. I've taken some college classes. If you miss a week or two, they'll figure out how to get the football player who came in. Like, there's exceptions of policies in every facet of professional and educational work. There's a exception policy. Like, hey, this guy was literally playing in the playoffs. He could not leave school. Here are his credits. We're going to transfer him in. He's going to start a week after everybody else. So he's going to start on the 17th instead of the 10th. It's perfectly fine. It was the same argument. They were saying, we don't know how to pay the players, so we're not going to do it. You need to figure this out, because all of this movement and all of this player movement and all these coaches movement, you can't have it literally in the middle of the holiday season, the bowl season, the playoff season. Like, it's too much going on at once, and it's going to dilute your product.
Right.
Your product is at stake because no one can come to the table and come up with a consensus on how to operate this. You already have a calendar. Just pick dates and then put rules next to the date. That's it. It doesn't take that much.
Well, our rule is at Sports Reports is Ordered, we will bring you the best coverage every Tuesday and Friday. And of course, don't forget tomorrow, we have our special episode with Jay Paterno, Board of Trustees at Penn State. Great conversation. Hope to have him on again. And look, if you don't do anything else, remember that Fridays are picks, and more picks. And he is the one and only world famous, world renowned, cool, calm, and collected. He was born in Texas, raised in Virginia, and he represents everything New Jerusalem, to where he's even holding out saying that Rutgers had a tough strength of schedule. How come they don't get no talk? You know what I'm saying? He is
next year
Mr. Logical. And then, of course, down here in the Alamo, I'm your unorthodox statistician going left so much you thought I was southpaw. Really? Usyk and Deontay Wilder? Really? But I am 2'5". But I am 2'5". I do believe in Joe Hendry. We are Sports Reports is Ordered. We are here for you. We love you. So do us a favor out there. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate. Do all the free things. Do all the good things with your liquid death in your hand. And
finish mine off, Sweet Reaper.
And then check us out on your DSPs. We're everywhere you get your podcasts. So we'll see you in a few days. Love y'all.
Mr. Logical, we run this town. Real talk only. No chasing, no doubt. From the east to the west, it's the order we shout. Mic check, lights flash, game time, stay ready. 2 vets in the zone, keep the pressure real heavy. Big hits, big plays, yeah, we breaking it down. Truth rings in your speakers, every word is the crown. From the north side hustle to that southern flame. Midwest grind, west coast of the game. Sports talk kings, yeah, we wear that crown. Turn it up, let them know it's about to go down. Sports reports, no gimmicks, no clowns. 2-5, Mr. Logical, we run this town. Real talk only, no chaser, no doubt. From the east to the west, it's the order we shout.